Can you let me in?
What if I did my presentation from like down here?
This is it.
I wish.
Yeah, I know. Do a little something like, I don't know. Here, look. Oh yeah, because it's the new thing. It is stupid.
Test.
Huh? Oh. Oh!
That's crazy.
Hello, my name is August Thompson. This is Outlier. Now, a bunch of you have probably seen Outlier before. I've snuck him into quite literally every project I can, so some of you might be more familiar than others. But what is Outlier? The Outlier I plan for it to be an ongoing comic series covering at least 3 major story arcs. At its core, Outlier is a story of learning to trust oneself again after making terrible mistakes and allowing others to help you through that process. My logline, riddled with guilt over failing to save his home, Outlier must fight rising factions as well as his inner demons to create a safe haven for the survivors he failed. In this first issue that I've gone through the struggle of making, Outlier failed to protect his home city, leading to its destruction and the villain getting away. Now on a mission to establish a safe haven for survivors to shield them from the rising factions trying to gain power. To do this, he will have to overcome the voices of doubt and guilt that plague him. When creating Outlier, I wanted to make sure that there was a sense of realness to them. These are the characters that I have. I did these over the summer to make sure that I had a solid base to begin with. On the left, I have to left and right. On the left is Outlier himself. I wanted a very streamlined, kind of dark character. In the middle is Jumper. He is kind of the foil to Outlier. He's a very opposite person to him. And then at the end here is Dr. Sky. Now, Jumper and Sky, they don't really show up necessarily in this in this comic, but they needed to be here. As well as the villains. On the left is Sunder. He's the big bad. He's awesome. I'm so excited to get to do more with him. And on the right is Gravatar. Again, these two don't necessarily show up. Sunder more than others, but I wanted to make sure I had a solid base to know who I was working with. So I'll take you through the actual comic itself. I have 6 completed pages. On the left here, we have what started out as a normal day in the city before the spire in the middle of the city, it blows up and leads to a chain of events that leads to the destruction of the rest of the city, causing it to just turn into a wasteland. On the right here, we start to introduce our character, Outlier. He's riding through the city. He's got some really bad thoughts in his head, just a lot of doubt, a lot of guilt. We continue with that, kind of going into somewhat of a flashback kind of dream sequence, I like to call it, where he's just so in his head while he's almost kind of spacing out, driving. He remembers the time where he wanted to help somebody, but all he could do was just stop the bad guy. We would continue seeing more shots of the actual city itself, driving by, kind of starting to see the city and what's become of it. Here we confront Outlier, stopping and seeing the destruction that the falling of the spire actually caused, a massive chasm within the city dividing it. We see him go up to a building. This is the only way to cross over the chasm. It's the only bridge, and people know it, so they've made it very threatening. So those are all the pages that I have, but this is the process that I've gone through in making these. First, you've heard of shameless promotions. Here's a shameful promotion. I have been documenting the series week by week starting in the summer. Some of you have seen it, some of you have not. You can see it on my Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn, which is shocking. I started with scripting. I boarded everything out. I broke down the major beats that I wanted, and I created this, what I like to call my murder board. It covers at least 2 issues, so I've started to plan for the future. I've broken down the characters, and I took all of that, converted it into a script. I took that script, I broke that down into the pages that I thought I would need, and then from there, I started thumbnailing and sketching, and then actually getting to the page. So there was I sketched all 24 pages out, and then I brought it back down to 22, and from there, from this part, I started to edit and really hone in on what exactly I needed per page. Here's some experimenting. Sometimes I didn't really like the framing I had, so I would kind of attack it and then attack it and then attack it until I finally got what was in my head onto the paper. So especially for this upcoming page that I have, I couldn't figure out that top panel until I really wanted that sense of overwhelming odds for the kid in this. Here's another image of trial and error. This page went through so many little tweaks, a lot of it having to do with the text, and I had to move it around. And this one was so much fun, and I also hate it at the same time. This is kind of, when developing this, I learned that cities are going to be a major part of this project, so I had to learn how to draw cities. I looked around at other media that I enjoyed how they built their cities, as well as the cities around me, so that I could study them. I quite literally took images and figured out how the perspective worked for shifting buildings and unevenness. I did this in another class where I did just little studies of street views, just kind of trying to figure out all the little intricacies. Additional assets, I actually built a whole set in Minecraft just so that I wouldn't have to, constantly refer to just drawings. I could position myself wherever I needed to be so that I could get the reference right. As well as creating a 3D model for the actual motorcycle itself, because motorcycles are hard to draw consistently. What comes next for this project is finishing all the sketches, of course. I have a lot of it sketched out. I've got up to at least page 16 planned. In these kind of sketches where they're a little more informal. And then for the blue pages, as I like to call them, I have up to page 12, I believe. So I'm going to be finishing those over the winter break, or at least the rough sketches. And then, of course, finish the actual book. That's on my to-do list. For next semester, I want the finished comic, like I said. I want to print out this book. I want to have it physically in my hands, and I want a couple of variant covers. I'm thinking at least 2, just to have a variety, something that people, collectors, can go out and go like, I want this version, or I want this version, because that's always fun to do. And yeah, that's about it.
August, great work putting it all together. It was cool seeing the process of it. In particular, it's definitely a particular setting that most of us can say we've seen with a lot of, it's already out in the media, Fist of the North Star, Akira, the whole, end of the world, there's something going on scenario. What I did think was really something pronounced was how you added the psychological aspect of the hero, the protagonist. And I guess my only question is with it being such a strong with it being such a strong emphasis on the story, how do you plan to carry that on throughout the story, of displaying the hero's psychosis? And will you display anyone else, or is it just the hero that will be able to understand what they're hearing in their mind?
Yeah, so I have a couple ways that I wanted to kind of showcase that. Everybody kind of has their own perspective. For future issues, if there was a time where the main focus or the main character, I guess, shifted to a different person, like a side story, I wanted to change up the actual panel structure. I know for this one, or for Outlier, it goes from very structured, and when he begins to fight, the panel structure becomes very jagged and pointed. Whereas someone for like one of the villains, I thought I would have be very almost kind of patchwork and kind of brushed in, where it doesn't kind of line up at all. So I wanted to have little things like that, where depending on who's the main focus, it would kind of shift just visually between them.
So once again, congratulations, good work, love the color. Do yourself a favor, get a flatter if you can, help you with some of that coloring, because I know how that is, but yeah, once again, congratulations.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure working through this semester. I have one question, and I have one piece of advice. So what I look at, it's absolutely beautiful. I think you found a great rendering style. My question for you is, you got 6 pages done this semester. Next semester, you want to get 16 pages done to finish the 22 plus variant covers. What adjustments to your workflow do you plan on adhering to get that done?
First major adjustment is I don't have an additional studio class, so it's a lot of more time. Also, I made sure that this first semester was a lot more planning and kind of getting things ready. So having the sets done for next semester is going to be huge. A lot of the next couple pages too are way more figure focused, so not as many backgrounds. This one, especially these 6 pages, was a lot of like visual setup for the world. I wanted to make sure that you kind of got the sense of what you were getting into before meeting the characters fully. So these next couple, or especially the last couple pages, are more, they kind of abstract a little bit more, getting more silhouette focused instead of like detail focused.
Great, thank you. It's on. Hello. Thanks. And then piece of advice. I think as you've come up through the years here, you definitely use this character. What's been the longest time you spent away drawing this character?
Hi, sorry, jump scare. I did not answer this question right. Like, I have a better answer, and that's I've only started drawing Outlier, like, seriously for the last 2 years. Previous years, I would draw him for, like, one project, and then I'd do everything else. These last 2 years were really focused on practicing and making sure that I figured out solutions before going into this final project. What I answer is just wrong. I didn't know how to answer it. So, yeah, I've taken more breaks between drawings of Outlier. I haven't just been solely drawing him. And you can see that through the other art that I've posted. I wanted to clarify this. I answered this very incorrectly, and now you can see what I answered.
Longest time? I spent a lot more time in college doing it, so but before then, there are years between.
Yeah, so it felt like every single project this character was somehow involved.
Yeah.
And I think obsession is wonderful, and I think falling to work is wonderful. I also think perspective can be even greater. So the moments you can step away from your work of a certain character or something like that, I think informs your character even more.
Yeah.
By having new experiences, new outcomes, new ways of working, different styles. So I encourage you to always keep working on this, but also allow yourself the time to step away from it, because it will inform your work more than I think it would. So that's my piece of advice to you. But great comic. I hope you continue with it. Look forward to seeing the finished thing. Thank you. And with that, I can open up to the faculty.
August, I saw hints of some of this stuff in previous classes, so that's awesome you're able to adapt. You have been living with this a while, it sounds like, so you're developing it. I love the color palette, the overall color palette, and I love the overall lighting effects that you used in this. It's really, really effective. And you mentioned the villain, that you're going to do more with that. How are you going to expand that, or do you want to do another book?
Yeah, so throughout the comic, sometimes I was thinking that it would switch to him, since he also has a very interesting perspective. Since what drives a person to destroy a city is kind of super interesting, and I don't want to make him like a redeemable villain or something. I just kind of want to explain it. It's just kind of like what the Penguin did recently on HBO. They did a fantastic job of showing you just how scummy that guy was.
Yeah, you never want to veer from that. Keep that central. Yeah, it's beautiful work. It really is. Congratulations. Nice work.
All right, August. Wow. First, I want to say, like, watching you work through this, find out like little issues and like iron out all the kinks. It's been very impressive. Also, seeing the amount of like work and dedication you put to this IP of yours, it's really impressive, and it's honestly very inspiring. With regards to continuing the project next semester, how do you think you want, is it going to be like mainly just Outlier, or do you think you're going to like introduce any of the new characters?
So for this first issue, it's definitely Outlier focused. He has a lot to cover in terms of kind of who he is, so I kind of purposely left them out. At the end, or the last page does tease all these rest of the characters, because that's always fun to kind of tease the future. But yeah, so this first one is very Outlier focused.
I like that tease. That's really good.
Yeah, quick question. In the tribute version of Outlier, what is that piece of fabric he's holding?
He's holding his blankie.
I didn't assume, but I thought it was a blankie, and I appreciate that as someone who still has their childhood blankie.
August, I just want to say that you have improved so much over the course of the years that I've known you, and I feel like every single panel can count as like a magnum opus. I can just see all the hard work and all like the thought that you put into each line and each color. And I just want to say it's amazing, and I'm really excited for next semester.
All right. Thank you, August.